All right, so without further ado, we have our guests here tonight, the dynamic duo from Grimerica. We've got Graham, we've got Darren. They're both over there on the Twitter. You can check them out. You can also check them out at grimericaoutlawed.ca. That .ca means they're not here in America, but they're in the same continent, and they share the ideas of freedom. And I want you to give them a warm welcome and round of applause out there in the chats. Graham and Darren, welcome to Grand Theft World. How you guys doing this evening?
Good. Thanks for having us. Happy to be here.
Yeah, we're doing great. 51, 51 all the way.
What's up, guys?
I was going to say, you guys know Scott, right?
Yeah, what's up, fellas?
Yeah, it's good to see you guys.
Good to see you, Scott.
You guys.
It was
So-
great listening to that little rant there because Darren and I both like just started doing our own thing. You know, Darren just left his job not too long ago, changing the mindset, doing our own thing, trying to add value to the world. So it was great to hear that little rant.
Well, what do you guys think about people being embarrassed about making their offers? Because there's a lot of chastisement. If you just watch chats and you take your opinion as an entrepreneur, you'll go out of business real fast because you'll be too scared to make your offer out there. I learned a long time ago when I was in college that you have to be willing to take no for an answer. In fact, if you make that your goal to go get 10 no's today on your offer, you're going to improve as a business person. And that gave me a future, whereas my college degree was never going to give me a future that I felt that, I had a desired living status level, and my business degree from college was going to do this. But investing in a franchise, learning how to run a business, hire, fire, get leads, do sales, that gave me all the experience I needed to get off and running. So did you guys ever do anything other than for a paycheck? Have you run businesses in the past? Like, how did each of you get your start?
Yeah, I've been up through the corporate ladder. I've had my own little tiny business, and then Darren and I've been in business with Darren in the steel industry. And then I left a little bit before Darren just because I was able to. And then he left that industry. You know, Darren's he's the doer, right? He's a real go-getter. I don't think he cares about the rejection part. He just goes after it. Like I'm a little bit more of a sort of a planner, a little bit maybe analysis, maybe
Procrastinate?
sometimes too much. Well, yeah, maybe
Paralysis by
I don't think
analysis, I
so.
call
Yeah,
procrastination.
try not
Yeah.
to get to that, but Darren
Yeah.
just goes after it. Like he's kind of more of that go after it type thing. But I've had 10 more years of career experience. I had been in a business process re-engineering environment in an aircraft industry and ran like a business excellence team. So I've had that, like, Scott was talking about pitching and stuff. I've had to meet in front of boards, and I've had to, sell our department, sell like business improvement. So I've been through all that. At least I've got that experience behind me, but now I'm kind of more of just adding value. We publish audiobooks, trying to just every day just work at it, add value so that we can build a business that's that we can have this freedom to do all these other businesses. I mean, Darren was just traveling around in the Azores, touring people around, looking for Atlantis, doing these awesome things, and he's able to do that because we're sort of been putting in the work to build up this sort of this income that happens no matter what we're doing.
Yes. Yes. And there's people who are out there like doing the motions, and they're like, why aren't I traveling to Azores too? Right. And the difference is knowing how to encapsulate your value in a way that the market is interested in and transacts with. And in the absence of that, people will make up all sorts of things, but it's like, oh no, that person just has some business savvy and they're applying it. You know, uh, as far as the publishing of the audiobooks, what do you guys do to market them to let people know about the ongoing creations?
Well, luckily we have the podcast, so that's how we take care of. We're able to
Okay.
take care of a lot of our marketing in house, and then I mean, I honestly looked at doing some advertising and on some of the different platforms, but I mean, our major platforms right now, at least, are Spotify and Audible, which are doing a pretty good job of cramming our content down people's throats already. Like I can't advertise to our books to our customers as well as the Spotify and Audible algorithms seem to be able to. We all get that email in our inbox every week from Audible, and here's the stuff you might be interested in. So, but look, we do the podcast and we put them on YouTube and we put them out in podcast form and we kind of
We have
get
a
'em-
website.
We have a website and
Yeah, I
we
have it.
do all
Let's
that
see. It's
stuff.
on this tab right here.
Adultbrain.ca.
Boom.
Yeah.
We
There you
probably
go.
don't market them honestly as well as we should. Like we probably don't market any of it as well as we should. From like I don't think we've ever, other than like some Facebook ads, we've never fucking spent a dime on
Well,
any advertising other than like we've built up all these connections and emails and everything else over the years. So it's like, we can, but I'm kind of shameless on just emailing people and being like, hey, we're selling this trip or we're doing this, or we've been able to amass this because we were listening to No Agenda in the beginning and they were in right away talking about the importance of, I don't know, it was sort of in passing, but they were talking about the importance of an email list. So we always were building this newsletter, which took forever, and you're sending this newsletter out to like 45 people, and it seems like a waste of time. But then before you know it, there's thousands of people on there. So it's like now, then we have that avenue. We have a new book coming out. We have a new trip coming out. We have, we had this person on our podcast. So, I
but
mean,
it's
yeah,
a good question though, because we don't do ads and I don't like listening to ads. I don't like the traditional marketing sort of advertising avenue. So that does kind of leave me in a spot where I'm like, well, we probably should figure out how to do a better job of marketing it. But I also don't really want to, put ads out there. So
the latest thing I've been thinking about, honestly, especially for the trips, because it's a high ticket item compared to like an audiobook, which I don't really have any control over the mechanism for anyway, because the sales 95 or not more than that. I mean, 99% of the audiobook sales aren't going directly through us. They're going through one of the countless distributors. But the trips are directly through us. That's directly in house, and it's a pretty high price ticket. We go, like, our latest trip is 13 days in Sicily, Sardinia, and Malta, looking at the Hypogeum and all that. Basically all of
Looking
it.
for giants in their.
Yeah, we're going to all the Giants tombs on Sardinia and all that sort of stuff. So it's going to be fun. And what I was thinking of lately, honestly, is because we don't want to do ads, and it's like Eventbrite will, because we use them, unfortunately, but sometimes they'll let you do these ad things and you can spend this money. And I was like, man, if I was gonna pay a few $100 or $500 in advertisements, I'd rather give it to our buddies. So we were just, I mean, I haven't even talked to the guys about that, but it was like, I'd rather do maybe an affiliate thing if I was going to do any sort of marketing, where I talk to all my buddies that have podcasts, because we find ourselves in this sort of podcast sphere, and say, hey, man, for every trip you can sell, I'll give you a couple $100, or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what a lot of entrepreneurs like. Our choice is I can give money to Zuckerberg, or I can give money to Eric Schmidt and Google, or I can give money to my colleagues in the form of referral fees for it's marketing. They
Yeah,
have
and it's a lot
access.
more valuable
What they
that
say
way.
in entrepreneurism is, like, especially in the internet world, like, if you come up with a new idea for a product or service, right? And the whole market is made up of solving problems. So if you have a method for that, now you can solve problems. And what do they want? They want results they want and don't have, and they want to get rid of problems they have and don't want. So now you're going to bring a product or service to the market because you saw something and you're like, I think this would work. If you don't go through the steps of actually overcoming the fears to get started with that idea, and like this is where I want to go with it, Darren. If you're the go-getter, if you're the doer, when in your life did you overcome like the limitation? Because most people through public school, they've got this limitation of what will other people think. They might get the idea at home, but it's definitely formulated through the school system, and that prevents a lot of people from pursuing good ideas into the marketplace. But when Graham had noticed, like, you're the one who doesn't, like, you don't need to plan or strategize. You could have an idea and put it into action and kind of figure it out after the fact, right? So, like, was that always something in your upbringing? Were there adults that modeled that for you, or is that something that you got to be like in sixth grade and then you made this leap forward? How do you think you acquired that daringness?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I mean, the business side of things, I think I kind of just had a natural affinity towards leadership in my career. So I mean, there was kind of a go-getter in that sort of way. Always sort of whatever, it was like whatever job I had, I knew I was gonna, I was always sort of cocky. Whenever I walk in there and be like, oh man, I'm better than all of these guys. It's just a matter of time. And that, honestly, just half the time or more turned out to be right. And not because I was better than them, but honestly, just because I tried harder. I was just like, I remember being in meetings when I was still doing construction when I first started, and I was first like starting to get leadership roles, and it's like my boss is showing me these blueprints in the morning, and I'm like, they're going over it, quick, and I'm like, I know if I can look at this and if I have a minute, oh, I can understand this, but they're going over it quick. They're like, yeah, you get it, you get it, you get it, and I'm just like, I just got in having, yeah, man, I got it because I knew I could just like when I got to the job site, I could sit down, take 20 minutes, look at the print, get through it. And by the time the guys had like all the tools unpacked, I would know what was going on. And before you knew it, when they were going over that shit quick in the morning, I was keeping up and I knew exactly what was going on. And I don't know, I guess I just take a lot of that sort of for granted because I mean, the older I get, the more it seems like most people aren't like me. They don't really,
But
most of the world doesn't think like any of the people in this conversation. It's like NPC is kind of derogatory, but it's just like,
A
you know,
descriptor.
I'll say I was given like the average person just way too much credit, I guess. So, and it's, as near as I can tell, as on that thread of autonomy, I mean, the world is kind of getting weird and shitty in some ways and kind of dark. But I mean, what I tell my kids is like the competition has never been weaker. It's never been weaker. It's never been easier to get ahead of these fucking idiots that are, I don't know if I can swear or not.
Oh yeah, you guys can say anything you fucking want.
It's never been easier to get ahead of these fucking people. I mean, they're buried in their phones, they're not paying attention. And I can sort of look around and see that, like even in my generation, I'm like 44, gonna be 45. And it's like there's still a decent percentage, that kind of were pretty switched on. But when I was by the end, half the reason I left construction because I didn't hate my job, I really didn't. But part of the reason I hung on so long is because the money was good, but I also didn't hate it. It got me out there. It was like a lot of high level problem solving and interaction and that sort of stuff. And I enjoyed it. But I mean, by the end, it was like idiocracy. I mean, honestly, the old people were always, I guess the old people have always been saying that in the trades. It's sort of been this thing. But when COVID sort of happened, I mean, I learned from brilliant people, like it's on site working for the site generals and other trades that were super switched on, older dudes that were super switched on. And there was like this combination of all those dudes were in the sort of heyday of construction, at least where I live, where they all got like shares and they had all these stock options and stuff like that. And then COVID happened and they started telling all these old dudes that they had to get these fucking shots and they had to do this and they had to do that. But these guys were all sitting on loads of money. So they were all just like, and those old dudes just couldn't quit. You know how those old dudes were, those old dudes that are like 20 years older than us. They just couldn't fucking give it up. It's like they were lifeblood was getting down on the job site and getting stuff done. But when COVID happened, man, half those dudes just sort of walked out the door and, another chunk of them got fucked up from the shots. And all of a sudden it was like, I found myself being the smartest person in the room.
And that's
way too
dangerous,
many
don't you think?
That's exactly what I was thinking. And I remember talking to Graham after, because we'd always have chats before the show, and I'm like, man, these guys are fucking retards. Like you would not believe the shit that's. And I'm sort of telling him my horror stories from these, what I would call like I'm not talking like Mickey Mouse stuff. We're building hospitals. We're building
high rises.
airports, we're building fucking high rises, and the engineers are fucking retarded. Like literally breaking rules. Like I'm not going to get into specific, but breaking rules that even me just being an iron worker welder know that's because that was how I came up. Know that these are like there's a reason that they've established these sort of hardline don't do this stuff. And the the response in the room would just be like, well, there's not really another way to do it, so that's how we're gonna do it. And I'd just be like, all right, well, when all those windows are broken in 3 years, when they all crack, just
But
remember.
there,
So, and then that added to this other problem where, man, when I first got into a leadership role, you used to be able to, like, because it's a very high fluctuation industry, you get busy, you get a couple big jobs, and you got an airport on the go, you got a hospital on the go, you got a high rise on the go, you need 40, 50 guys. And up until COVID, like, honestly, it's weird to use COVID, but there's almost like this weird post-COVID. There's pre-COVID and there's post-COVID, and it might just be a coincidence. I mean, I don't see anything that should tie these two things together, but there might be a psychological thing at play there that is tying them together, or there could be a thing that is exactly what we're talking about, where COVID happened and a bunch of people took some time off work, or figured out how to do their own thing, or figured out how to do another thing, or figured out how to make ends meet another way when they weren't allowed to make money. But it used to be like you'd put out an ad and you'd need 5 or 10 guys and you'd get 30 resumes, and it would be hard to pick the guys because they'd come in and they'd all kind of know what they were talking about, and they'd be on time or early for the interview. And by the time I left, like, we were literally just scraping the bottom of the barrel. Half the guys that came in couldn't speak like a lick of fucking English. So we can't even do the interview. I'm not trying to be racist, but it's like, I don't see how this is going to work because we can't even get to a job interview. So I don't see how I'm sending you out to a job site to try and communicate with people that are a lot more, in some ways less sophisticated than I am. I'm not saying that I'm very sophisticated, but I can turn it on when I need to a little bit. And so by the end, it was like, man, it was like trying to find someone in their 20s that knew or had any sort of
initiative.
not even that's the word, initiative. It's like you don't expect the kid coming in to have ability. None of us did when we first started. You're just grinding, it's this, it's that. But it was just like, A, they're either too good for it, B, they're too lazy for it, or C, they're just, I don't know what it is. C is just this weird thing where it's like it's
All the above. They're soft.
It's soft. Soft is a good word for it. It's too fucking much for them.
But I do want to go back to something because Darren, there was a shift, I think, in Darren's entrepreneurialism, and we were because we were looking at all these books, we were approaching all these topics in like 1,000 episodes, and I think it was kind of like the New Thought, kind of Napoleon Hill type stuff, where Darren read that book. I think that if you look back, it was probably either your DMT trip or reading that book from Napoleon Hill that kind of just flicked a switch there. That because we started talking about, like, we need to kind of, or we should start in all these different sort of revenue streams, and we have the ability to do all these different things. And then that was sort of the start of this manifestation that we didn't even really realize at the time. So what do you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I still don't know what to do with half that Napoleon Hill stuff because I don't know. It's like this weird chicken and egg stuff. Whereas, like, did we find success because we just thought we could be successful? I mean, obviously, there's this whole work ethic thing and productivity and adding value to the world that comes with all those teachings as well. But then I just find the more sort of success I can find, the easier it is for me to feel successful, like just, and I don't even know if successful is the word, but just like, there's this sort of weight off your shoulders. And then part of it is maybe not having a boss and being in charge of your own, nobody can fire you tomorrow. Nobody can just turn your world upside down. I mean, a lot of it might just be not living paycheck to paycheck. There's just so that like we're not rich by any stretch of the fucking imagination. But we're not poor either.
You are your brand of wealthy, right?
Yeah,
it's not about yachts or planes or any of that stuff.
Yeah.
It's about you being able to pursue your freedom and defend your freedom as you please without having to, like, look at the price before you order a piece of food or pick it up at the grocery store. And I think that level of freedom is attainable for more people than people want to believe. Otherwise, they'd feel like they should be doing something about it.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it as wealth, because I was actually just saying that when I was in the Azores. Someone was like, oh, I'm far from rich, but I do consider myself wealthy because we've managed to find a living that we like. and we have sort of passive income that's, you know, just a little bit bigger than the burn, which is all you need. So it's like all of a sudden it's like I feel like I've got my life back, and I still feel like I'm stealing it some days. You know what I mean? Like, dude, I was out duck hunting today, and I felt like I had to get back for something. And it's like, dude, you got nothing to do till 8:30 tonight. You could literally sit out here till you freeze to death because it's pretty cold. But you know, some days I still have, and I still work like a dog too. Don't get me wrong, you know, but it's just like it's up to me when I work, what I'm doing. We've got so many different businesses and projects on the go now that it's like I'm sick of this. Okay, I can just pivot to that, pivot to that, pivot to that. I would say the big downfall to it, and I was just thinking about that line in bed the other day, is the fucking days and the weeks just go by like that. Whereas when I hated my job, and I didn't even hate my job that much, you know, but it was still a grind. I was still like, you had to get up every morning, you had to be there from this time to this time. And you know, at the inevitably you end up looking at the days are dragging at some point, hours are dragging, the meetings are dragging, so life is going by slow when you're waiting for the buzzer. And now I'm never waiting for the buzzer, you know, I'm always doing stuff I'm excited about. So it's like, you know, all of a sudden it's supper time, and then it's like my wife's dragging me up out of the office because, you know, however much time's gone by and I'm not really paying attention. So, but then we can go to the Azores. I can go hunting whenever I want. I can spend time with my kids, but it really is,
You're in control of your time.
yeah, it's a it's a huge difference. It's the way to, it's once you, I would never go back. But someone was asking me the other day and I was like, man, there's no amount of money in the fucking world you could pay me to come back. And I mean, you could probably get me to come for a month if you were like, say, hey man, can you come put up this building for a bunch of money? I could be like, yeah, that might be doable. Cause that's, again, I've decided to take on one job. I know how long it's going to be. But it's like, if you wanted to pay me a salary to come back to work, man, every day. And I was like, there's not a number. There's
Yeah,
not.
I still work hourly part time for the odd thing, painting. Like I'll go out and paint a house part time for hourly just to get out there and do some physical work and kind of keep that other thing going, you know, and just and be of service to the little community that I'm in doing that. Some construction labor. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
continuing to engage in meaningful activities is like it's like what helps us have a meaningful life. And I know
Absolutely.
Scott's been working on like his parallel skills because he's acquiring skills. Like some people acquire baseball cards back in the day, and he's been getting into videography and making ads for clients and these sort of things. And learning how to do it for yourself now enables you to take another skills. Like so, you know how to make an offer to the public, and now you also know how to shoot a video, edit a video, make music, all these sort of things, and then you put those two skills together and now you have a higher value offer. When I was early in my film career, this is like 2008, I would need to do jobs of the filming variety, videography, cinematography, you know, motion camera, cameras on sticks for different types of events. And my day rate back then was like, I don't know, 800 bucks. And so I'll come film something. Plus, I got to charge you for some editing time. So projects were usually like 3 to 5 grand. And with that, I could buy cameras and lenses and jib cranes and sliders and all lights and microphones and that because our subscription model at Tragedy and Hope was like 15 bucks a month. You can't buy tens of thousands of dollars of equipment to do this other thing with that model. So I would work side jobs. So I filmed a lot of concerts, swore off some of that. I talked about that earlier in Q&A with the students about like that learning curve. So getting to the point of if you offered me 5 grand to go film something right now, I'd give you Scott's number. Right. So being able to say no to 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, you could really say, hey, I'd like you to go to DC for a weekend. I'll give you $20,000 to film this thing. And I'm probably saying, no, I could probably get 4 enrollments over here by doing some marketing and I don't have to leave my family because that's the equivalent, you know? So learning how to be an entrepreneur, pack more value into your offer that goes to the market and learning how to make more and more valuable offers to the market. I could start out with video editing, but then, you know, put me with a camera and then put me with acquire a location and deliver a desired result like what Scott did for his guitar client. Like, I wanted to ask, like, how much did you charge for that? But I'm not going to do that live on air.
Oh,
But
me?
Scott was just
Okay.
showing it. Yeah, yeah. You
I'll
were
tell you.
showing that clip right before
Yeah.
the show. Like,
Well,
what did you charge?
that's important to know because basically, like I said, I worked with him in the past. All right.
Mhm.
And we did construction work in the past. And so he was the first person I reached out to when I was like, hey, I'm launching this videography business. I'd like to make you a promotional video for your business, and in exchange, I want to be able to use it on in my portfolio and then get a testimonial from you. So I'm at that stage where I'm literally trying to build a portfolio of valuable stuff that I can then showcase to other potential clients and be like, this is my offer. This is what I have. So he actually gave me a donation, like just a cash donation. But the idea was that it was just going to be that was the deal. I was going to make it was going to be practice for me. I learned a lot doing it. That was my first project. So I can't, I'm like, I don't even know what the hell I'm doing. So I'm figuring out as I go. And I learned about color grading through that project. I learned about log
I
filming.
learned about color grading on the Bill Binney interview
Yeah.
project.
Yeah, so I learned about filming log mode so that you can then go in and get even
Better
cooler,
corrections. Yeah.
like cinematic. And so I learned that in this process. So, for me, it was very much worth it to just, and I've done that for 3 other people now. I'm sitting on footage that I'm working on editing. So I'm at the point where I'm building my portfolio and I'm ready to come out the gate hard. I like literally, it's going to be awesome. I'm super excited, which brings me to kind of what Darren was talking about a little bit ago, and both you guys really, but it's the idea of, you know, you guys have been such an inspiration to me over the years, with the events that you do, and then of course with the audiobooks, multiple podcasts. It's like you guys are living examples of like just being fully immersed in the creative space and then making money off of it, having passive income, stuff like that. But for me, the experience I've had, and I was gonna see if you guys like have this similar mindset, where it's like when you get inspired to create a new business venture, and this is something I picked up in Autonomy, the idea of it being like a widget. It's like a widget. It's just a thing. It's like, oh, I have to start a new business, which means I have to do this. I have to get a social media. I have to make a website. I have to do this and that. And so it's like I've gone through the motions of doing so many ventures now at this point where it's like that barrier of entry of the mental block of like, oh, it's impossible. How do I do it? It's like, no, I just need to do this, and this. So starting a new venture like what I'm doing right now with the videography thing, I have full confidence in it because I've done it so many different times with so many different things where it's just like, oh, if I have to do a new entrepreneurial thing, I can just do it because I just know how to do it. So the more you do it, the easier it gets and the more comfortable you get.
I would add to that it's about failing. That's probably the
Yes.
main thing that people get hung up on is, man, we've put a bunch of, we've failed on trips, we failed on a bunch of stuff. You can get a product to market quick, but I've put up a bunch of websites that just some shit don't work. I remember I was going to tool rental business. It just don't work. But if you just keep swinging, eventually it'll stick. You just got to keep showing up. That's not all of it. You got to do a bunch of other stuff too. But if you just keep showing up every day, I figure like it'll work out. Out of all the people we interviewed, I still think that John McAfee was probably one of the most profound things when he said to Graham and I, he's like, man, you guys are smart. He's like, I think because he had just finished this whole spiel on why you can't work for someone else and you need to be doing your own thing and blah, 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 blah. And I made some comment about having a family to take care of and this and that. And he was just like, yo, you seem like a smart guy. He's like, I'm sure if you're like, you'll get another job before you guys starve to death. He's like, there's like lots of jobs out there. I'm sure you guys will figure it out. It's not. And I mean, even after that, it took a few years after that I mean, honestly, I was pretty close and then I got divorced. So it set me back a ways, but we still got here in the end. But, that was kind of that straightforward thing. It's like it's kind of hammering in that failure thing. It's like, you're going to fail, man. You're going to fuck it up probably like a couple times. And I'm like a fuck up on the fly kind of guy. So it's like, oh yeah, well, I'll go.
That just happened.
Darren would like to fix it. I'd rather like plan it out so it doesn't break, but Darren will be like, oh yeah, we'll just let it break and I'll fix it later. Darren's a fix it guy too.
Yeah, because I'm sort of a rush to market sort of go. That's why we're probably a pretty good team because we kind of we play
Balance
off
each other out a bit.
pretty well. Yeah.
It's like the chemistry of the Odd Couple back in the day, right? You got someone that's very pragmatic and patient, and somebody who's very exuberant and out there just getting. I said we're going to do it, and we're going to figure out how we're going to get it done. And I think you need both of those, and I think that's good balancing as well. And I think the notion of failing fast to succeed sooner is a valid concept that many people they have learned helplessness about the failure part. And they're like, nah, failure's final. No, no, no. You don't get to success. And you've been practicing failure's final your whole life. You're not at success yet. So maybe you got to like fall down and get up a couple times and learn from that experience. We have a lot of thoughts that's like, for instance, schooling puts in that aren't useful. The I can't mentality instead of the how can I mentality. Like you can't get to the A's or O's with I can't mentality. But with the how can I or how can we, or even if you just put it out to other people, they'll come up with ideas and share it. Oh, yeah, this one works. Let's do that. Jordan Maxwell used to get booked on trips all the time to Egypt and the pyramids and Babylon and places like that. And I'm sure there was some savvy entrepreneur behind the scenes who says, I'd like to take a trip to Egypt. And I'd like to go with a bunch of cool people. I bet if I paid Jordan Maxwell to, that's how those things, Zachariah Sitchin, they've been doing this for decades. And so I think it's good. And high ticket offers aren't for everybody, but the people who partake in those offers, like they've taken different actions in life usually, right? And the people who are like, I can't afford that. My question would be like, if you've been helping people all week, which is maybe not the truth, but if you've been helping all people all week, you're halfway there. You just need to be able to exchange value for that help. But if you're not serving people all week and being useful to other people, like you're not even in the game yet. And that's where schooling drops people off. They're not even getting in the game. They're spectators to their own lives,
I think the
And
important part as well, which Scott mentioned, is doing it for free, volunteering or doing it for free, and not worrying about like how much you're going to make right up front. I mean, I've managed to do 3 or 4 different ventures. I mean, audiobooks included, and even the podcast. That was all free. It was all just labor, just doing it to do it right up front. And even painting. I mean, I even started painting for somebody for free just to see if I could do it again after missing it for so many years. I mean, it's just a matter of getting out there and doing it, even if you're not making money right away, and it'll come later.
Yeah,
yeah,
all
we
the
got to talk
videos in the
painting
world.
sometime because that was my franchise business in college. But yeah, you're right. Please continue, Darren.
All the videos and all the I was sort of stuck in a loop for a while. I would say that's so it might be that the books and the DMT kind of played off each other because I was sort of stuck in a loop for a while where I was, I'd read 150 books or listened to 150 books or whatever. It's like all the self-help stuff, all the improvement stuff, all the manifest it. You just listened to all of it, but I wasn't really putting any of it into practice. And I mean, there were honestly, I think part of it was maybe the DMT. Probably part of it was I was like living in a basement apartment that I didn't fucking like, and it was like my neighbors were stomping around upstairs, and
Set
I'm
and
like,
setting.
yeah, and I'm sort of looking at my paycheck stub and trying to figure out. It's like, well, man, and at this point, I'm paying alimony, so it's like, and I'm looking at my pay stub, and it's like, man, how can I like? There's no getting ahead. It's like at best, I'm already at the sort of top of the career here, and it's like at best I can, maybe add 50% of this if I'm lucky. And we had kind of gamed on the side of monetize. I think at that time we had already somewhat monetized the podcast successfully. We were making enough money we were renting an office and paying rent for a storage container and stuff like that. So I think the first and something sort of clicked when I was looking through the ads at these places I couldn't afford, and it was just instead of trying to figure out, I was sort of stuck in this mentality of trying to, well, I could cut this or I can cut that, and I sort of just switched that to like, and almost remember the moment sitting at the kitchen table in that shitty apartment and just being like, man, I just got to figure out how to add this money. I was like, this is only $1,000 a month. I mean, I can, and then it, you know, Richard was probably like literally within seconds of that mindset change, whereas like, I don't need to cut something. I need to add some money to this. And then all of a sudden I start having the realization, we're paying for this fucking podcast studio. The internet sucks there anyway. Half the time we're both sick of driving all the way out there. And I'm like, man, I can rent this house out and I'll rent the $1,000 that we're paying for all this other stuff, we can cram all our storage stuff into the garage of the house, and that can be the storage, and the podcast studio and all the stuff that's in this office we're renting right now can be in the basement, and the podcast can just pay me that same amount of money to rent this basement off me, and then I can get my kids into a full size house, and which was sort of the goal, that sort of immediate goal. But ever since then, I've always sort of looked at it that way when I'm looking for something. It's like I never ever look at cutting back it's never really on the table. I mean, I would if I had to, but my immediate go-to is always, okay, if you need to make another $300 a month to pay for this, so I can figure it out, dude. At the end of the day, it's not a lot of money. It's $10 a day. How can you make $10 a day?
Asking those questions, I think, is what's like off most people's radar. So the classic 20th century references were Napoleon Hill and Dale Carnegie, both of whom were funded by robber barons to write these famous books about like wealth and productivity and things like that, right? So it's propaganda for robber barons sprinkled with elements of the recipe, but not the entire recipe. And so if you trickle that up to the 21st century, you've got a movie like The Secret, which like 20 years ago was a very popular movie, and you get your ideas and you put them on a vision board, and then everything just magically happens for you, and that's the end of the movie. But that's not it. That's the start of you actually, the second half of the movie, or the second part would be like, okay, now take all those frou-frou ideas, grandiose ideas, map them to reality in your schedule with actions. What are we going to do? What's the first leg of that? Have we reverse engineered that process? Have we seen the things we need and don't have? Have we identified things we need to learn that we don't know? These types of things have to be navigated at some point. Darren's favoring like just start on the journey and you'll discover along the way. Graham's mentality is kind of like let's identify the best path through, right? And you put those two together and you get a really interesting dynamic. But also, you guys are living a lifestyle of liberty that I think, people could see it as, oh, well, you guys are just lucky. I don't know, how much luck is there in you getting up every day and doing the thing that you have to do to carry out the responsibilities that lead to the fruits of your labor? And I
The
would guess
funniest
it's
part,
different than the people that make the critique, because if they had that same sort of list, they wouldn't be making that comment in the first place.
the
Right? Go ahead.
funniest part is the same. I was actually just thinking about this the other day when I was driving, because it's like the same people now, now I hear it all the time, right? When I'm out with my hunting buddies, when I'm out doing this, when I'm out doing that, because they've got work on Monday and it's Sunday, and I'm like, man, we should get back out tomorrow. And I hear it all the time, man, you're lucky, you're lucky, you're lucky, you're lucky, you're lucky. And I'm just like, man, you're the same motherfuckers that were laughing at me and calling me crazy when I was starting this fucking podcast in my fucking garage. So don't call me fucking lucky now. I've been busting ass for fucking, what is it, 13 years now or something like that, man, for a long time, I didn't even tell anyone on my Facebook, because I had people from I deleted Facebook for a long time and then reinstalled it. But for the first like 5 years of the podcast, having the podcast, I don't think I even like put an episode of it on my personal Facebook, because I just like didn't want to mix those two worlds. Now I don't give a fuck. I really don't. Which is, I don't know. Some of that is just getting older, I think. I really think some of that is just getting older.
Maybe. Well, Graham, are you, what year were you born? That's the polite way to ask.
70.
All right. So you're 3 years older than me. That's my polite way of saying how old I am. I'm experienced. I got half a century of experience on this planet, kids. So step back. All right. So what's the experiential gap between you and Darren in daily work? Are there things that you have more, during your 10 years of additional experience, did you I've got this, or like, what's the knowledge gap like? Because our generations, I see it as, are very close, and there's very little knowledge gap. But if you compare the same, like 35 to 45-year-old, there's a big knowledge gap right there.
I think the main thing is I just come from a more formal business. Like I had to, I worked my way up through the corporate ladder, so it was a little more formal, a little more formal in the emails, a little more. I think that, and Darren was kind of coming more from the rough construction industry, from sort of north. I came from the coast in Vancouver, and he came from northern Ontario in a small town. So I think there's a bit of a, I don't know if it's a knowledge gap, but it's definitely a difference in experience. And I honestly, I'm feeling pretty grateful. I had lots of travel around the world, lots of travel around Canada when I was young. I mean, I really did have an amazing, you know, through my 20s and 30s, or no, let's say 30s and 40s, I guess, you know. So yeah, maybe a little bit more of just that life experience, I guess, and formality in business with communication, that kind of stuff. I don't know if Darren would pick out anything else besides that, but
Oh, I would say your attention to detail and your organizational ability,
yeah,
which is kind of when we were working together in construction was sort of the exact same dynamic because I
right.
was out in the field building the shit and Graham was in the office, running the office side of things and production
Logistics of
side of things.
supplies arriving at the site and
Yeah,
other things that are outside your purview because you're on deck working.
100%. Yeah, yeah.
I think it's
All right,
funny
so
because like there's like a similar age gap between Richard and I, but I'm like where Richard was at in like 2006. So I gotta keep on running.
long,
So
long time
I
ago.
mean,
When I started podcasting, I couldn't even tell anybody but that I was podcasting because no one had a reference for what podcasting was back then. It wasn't until like Rogan picked it up. Because even though the Podfather was doing it, like I'd have to explain to him. Like there was this guy who was on MTV and he was a VJ with long hair, but now his hair's not long and he has a podcast. It's like it takes too long. So sometimes I would say, hey, you ever see that thing that Tom Green was doing? And have your own studio and broadcast? Or you ever see the movie Pump Up the Volume, where they had a pirate radio station broadcasting the truth? Like that was the idea.
yeah, at the end of the day, I don't know if there's magic involved. I still like to believe there is because it keeps my it does a good job of keeping my head clean, keeping my mindset positive because I think that I mean, mindset's important whether magic's involved or not. I think either way. I mean, but I do seem to manifest some crazy stuff. It seems like everything I want bad enough, I end up getting the end right down to my wife. I mean, I told Graham, even my wife, I was like, man, I'm gonna date that chick. And so but then
Yeah,
that
he called
gives
it.
me that it gave me the savvy to go after it, that so which is it, the chicken or the egg?
Well, I think there is something to the various forms of wealth that you can build for yourself before you ever get in a relationship with money, right? Attitude of gratitude. That's a type of wealth that you can bring with you and cultivate, and you can like give away to people through your interactions, and you never become poor through it, right? So there's various elements. Patience is a form of wealth that we can discover and make it easier on other people's days and allows us to be more calm, cool, collected and not take our turmoil and like domino effect into everyone else's like, chaos. It can be like a guiding light that helps them see, you know what, maybe we don't have to have such a piss poor attitude about every goddamn thing around here. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes just coming in with a positive attitude and some politeness and treating other people and seeing them as a conscious human being, even if they're an NPC for, most of their day, you can make a real connection with them. You can kind of get them out of like their rut. You can make them laugh. You can share a kind word exchange. These sort of things, I think that if you want to become wealthy in the marketplace, then you need to become wealthy in those places internally that you can never become poor from cultivating. And I think that's also kept off people's radar and the ability to be able to learn how to do that. I mean, any sufficiently advanced technology seems indistinguishable from magic. So there's a lot of things we don't understand, just as far as like human beingness.
Yeah,
What happens when you take someone's
presence.
electricity away? We
Presence.
call that
It
life
sounds
force, right?
cliche, but being present.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the
Podcast is
present.
good for training that. I mean, it's hard sometimes when they're talking about stuff that I think is fucking bonkers, but it's like, you just got to force yourself to pay attention. I mean, I'm also grateful just to have a partner like Graham because it like, I don't know if I would have made it through all the hurdles. It definitely hasn't just been like a cruise, like, oh, foo, away we go and now we're making money, we went from thinking we were making good money to not making any money like countless times along the way. It's like, oh yeah, here we go. And then boom, fuck, you're not making nothing. Or you're canceled here or you're kicked off of there. And it's like having a partner that, and not just that, also just showing up to make sure that I show up and go do some work every day, because when you're self-employed, you can easily slip into the not, especially when you're self-employed with passive income, you could easily slip into not doing anything all day, but you have a business partner that you're accountable to. There's been, plenty of times you might not feel like doing the podcast and it'd be easier to just skip this week, but it seems like neither of us ever have that sort of week on the same week, or, not that we have it very often, but I don't know if I
Get
would have
it.
made
I
it
get it.
13 years without having someone that's expecting you to show up for. It's like, I mean, now it's a lot easier once you have some success, right? Because you know exactly what you're showing up for. But for 7 or 8 years, I mean, we didn't know what the fuck we were showing up for. It was kind of fun most of the time. Sometimes it wasn't. Sometimes it was frustrating. But it was someone to always sort of be accountable for. Definitely helped along the way from my perspective.
That's an advanced form of like self-development and self-motivation that most people haven't been in touch with yet. Like I teach it in autonomy for just a handful of VIP students every year. Um, so like, 4 or 5 students per season. And what they learn is even though they're productive and successful and already run like a 6-figure business or, own a firm or something like that, there's these little bits of accountability. When you're your own boss, you can be like ever extending your goals and deadlines and commitments, but when there's other people involved, and when you have a coach that you said last week you're going to do this thing and you got to come back this week with, I didn't accomplish that, what are the excuses, right? And you learn not to do that in that process. And then you learn also that the thing you said you were going to do in the next 2 weeks, life gets in the way. And so you did things during the 2 weeks. It just wasn't the thing that you picked out like, 2 weeks ahead of time. And so learning to be able to pick a goal and actually achieve it in a time frame is a condensed skill set that most people don't ever get a taste for during their lifetime, but they could learn in a couple weeks, right? Like there's never been a time that during that 12-week or 6-week stint that people bring excuses more than 3 weeks, because everyone else in the group discovers how to be productive. And the one person who was bringing excuses every week is like, oh, I tried and actually achieved the result. And now they don't have to bring an excuse. And then they're just like, oh, that's easier than bringing excuses. I just tried and I either failed or I succeeded. But I took an action and I got a consequence. And from there, we can coach and we can help people get a next step in. So I think that again, it goes back to the provisional self-esteem, the learned helplessness, like a lot of the inculcations that are international. It just didn't just happen here in North America accidentally. This has been part of their erosion of the cognitive awareness of people who run the world. And thus, people are noticing a big gap between people who just like need something served to them on a plate from the microwave because they can't even make their own frozen food, to people who knew how to make the thing that made the microwave in the first place. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a big gap in running this planet that's not being filled in by a couple, at least one generation or decade
Oh
of
yeah, I don't even think
people
it's,
behind us.
dude. I don't think it's fillable. I don't think the guy. I think we're like past. I think we're like,
How can it be filled, Darren?
dude, we're
That's the
like,
question.
yeah, we're like. I mean, I used to say 1,000 pages, but we're probably up to like 700 pages before the start of Atlas Shrugged at this point.
Duly noted. Duly noted. I'm not going to live for anyone else, and I expect no one else to live for me. That's a
No, but it
60
seems,
page monologue in there of
yeah,
the Who is John Galt.
4 hour speech. I mean, that's
I have a whole podcast episode that's probably 4 hours on Who is John Galt, Peace Revolution episode. I don't remember, but that's a strong lesson he just referred to there.
I like that. I mean, she's one of my favorite authors of all time.
I see her fiction as her trying to purvey the ideas in the nonfiction to the public. And so some of the characters, other novelists would have done a better job of like kind of fleshing them out. But it's like, I understand what she was trying to do at that point. And it's a rebranding of Aristotle. And there was a lot of other smart thinkers aside from Ayn Rand, who's a fallible human being. And so I take it with a grain of salt, but some people get really upset if you say Ayn Rand
Oh, dude,
or
my buddy Dave Matheson.
objectivism. How
My
dare you
buddy
learn how
Dave
to think
Matheson.
without
Yeah,
contradictions? Yeah.
he'll freak out as soon as I say her name, and I'm like, Dave, just read the book, and he's like, I ain't reading it, and I'm like, well, you can't.
You
I mean,
don't, but Dave
I
could
know.
read the Ayn Rand lexicon by Harry Binswanger and Leonard Peikoff, which is a dictionary of non-contradictory terms about freedom. That could be useful in fighting the New World Order. These people who wrote this stuff, by the way, are no longer here. So I take no stigma of the messenger. I take the message and I say, is it useful against these globalists? Then if hell yeah, then maybe we should study it. If they lie to us with words, maybe we should learn how to parse the words and find truth instead of depending on authority to tell us truth, because I don't think that's worked out too well for humanity so far.
No, it
So
hasn't. And it seems like I don't know, where do you think we're at with that? Because I go back and forth on sometimes feeling like,
it
for a
comes
while.
back to sharing the skills. Like if we had a 4x8 piece of plywood and we had to break it down and we didn't have some tools, we could still find the center of that by drawing some arcs and using a compass. Like we could find a piece of string and a nail, and we could find overlapping lines. We could logically and reasonably figure it out with intersecting lines, even if we don't remember geometry and trigonometry and stuff like that. The ability to problem solve for younger people today is immense compared to the learning issues of older people. So even though there's people who have been damaged by the school system, those people can get to learning success so much easier than the people who have like never been out of their incubator terrarium. They've always been cared for by the authority in the obedience chain. That's the challenge of like, what is it? Gen Z, Gen X, one of
There
those
does,
generations. No,
I
I'm
mean,
Gen X. Forget it.
Gen Z is, I think Gen Z can vote, right? Gen Z or the Zoomers can vote. They can vote already. So it's, I gotta say, I do
I have
see.
hope for the Zoomers, but it's what was the one right before them?
I think that's like the
Millennials.
millennials. Because there seems to be a bounce back in my kids' generations. They're like
Too old to remember the generations now.
12, 13, and 14. And there seems to be a real sort of pushback against the current system there, I would say. They seem to be, I mean, I agree with my kids on more than I would expect to. I don't know if that's just because they're my kids and I've sort of conditioned them that way, but even their whole generation, they're like calling each other retards again. And I mean, I was got a peek at one of their group chats and I'm like, Jesus Christ, this might as well be me and my buddies, honestly. It's like, so I do see some hope in those kids. And I mean, I'm in a rural community too. I'm out sort of in the middle of nowhere, hanging around at barns and stuff like that. So the kids I'm seeing might be not typical, but I would say there seems to be, and my girls don't fit that mold, but there seems to be right now that most of the young boys are pretty conservative and most of the young girls are pretty liberal. My one daughter actually gets bugged because she's a conservative. I guess I'm like, you guys are fucking 14. You don't know what you are. I mean, I guess she's not into like transgender shit and stuff like that. So that's a conservative now.
Graham, what do you think about the generations coming up? I see like the kids 20 and under have a very can-do attitude and they like to learn about stuff, but there's a generation slightly ahead of them that's very entitled and everybody got a trophy, and their parents like coincidentally never faced a lot of real challenges either. So there was like a soft spot in there. Now there's this thought of the fourth turning and that strong people lead to, there's the whole hierarchy that leads back to weak men create harsh times. But yeah, what's your position on the optimism, black pill, white pill?
I'm a little worried about the generation. I think, I think that UBI is coming. I think we're not going to be able to stop it. I think we're not going to be able to stop the tech. We have to learn to live with this technical revolution, and it's
Will
coming.
it learn to live with us?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I've got a positive outlook. I just think we have to go through a lot of this stuff to get to the other side. I just think that I've always been sort of against UBI and stuff, but now I'm starting to question. Like I don't know if we're capable of fixing the economy without it. Or they
Or at
want
all.
to. I mean, what's that?
I was just saying, or at all. So we might as well just at least print the money and give it to other people other than just like Ukrainians and Somalians.
Yeah,
Well, you guys have the Bank of England's best guy in charge of your country right now, Mark
it's
Carney.
a mess. Oh yeah. Oh my God. It's gonna get nasty here in Canada. I think I have a bit of a prediction. There's gonna be some conflicts over land and stuff. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff happening in BC with UNDRIP being officially accepted by the BC courts, and then there's
Can you tell us a little bit more about that? I know.
Is it a UN program?
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean I can't tell you precisely legally, but BC is unceded compared to the rest of Canada, or most of the rest of Canada, which has treaties in place for the natives. And so there's been some land disputes. So, and these people, it's happened. Like people have private property that they don't the banks don't want to relend the money, right? So this is like real stuff that's going to get people upset. I mean, as soon as the banks stop, wanting to remortgage your house or give you a new mortgage, or if your values start dropping, and BC's up in the air because they're following this UN thing, which is going against the Constitution of Canada, but BC is sort of so woke that they don't have the constitutional scholarship to actually like slow the train down a little bit. So they're all in for the natives in a lot of ways from the system. But there's a political party now that's sort of been created from the conservatives that is pushing back, and they're getting smeared as, of course, racist and all this stuff. So it's coming. It's going to come to a bit of a head. I don't know how long it's going to take, but this kind of thing is the type of thing that could really create some conflict over land ownership and property. And then Darren and I were arguing about pipelines, going from Alberta to BC, and whether that could happen or not. We have a total disagreement on that. But I mean, Darren might be able to talk a little bit more about the treaties and how different it is in certain areas. But most of BC is unceded, which means that they're starting to come out of the woodwork and claim land of Kamloops and these other areas that are actually like free title. What do they call it, Darren? Free title. People have bought
Aboriginal
property
title, I think.
No,
think
it's the fee,
or
free
simple fee, or I don't
simple
know.
fee or something.
Fee
There's
simple. I'm not
so
sure.
I just think it's not going to go away right now. So I just don't want to. I mean, I just don't want a revolution. I just think we have to just sort of buckle up, and of course fight back. I'm not saying don't fight back, but we have to go through this next phase in order to wake people. I really truly believe that we need to go through the next phase for people to understand what's going to happen. With they're going to fail at their attempt. This is my wholehearted belief right now, is they're going to try and push all this stuff to us, and they're going to fail. And that's going to be the only time when we can kind of like reorganize as a society and get to a happy medium between living with technology and freedom. So,
well, that's a tough balance to strike in a world run by the World Economic Forum, and the guy who runs BlackRock is
yeah, but
now
they're
in
a bunch
charge of.
And the
they're
Unabomber might have been
they're
right.
idiots. I mean,
that elephant
going to
is in the
fail.
room. That the Unabomber might have been right.
That's one of our
I'm not
best-selling
saying-
books.
I'm not saying that his like method was. I'm not endorsing the method, but I mean his book. What is it called? The Manifesto.
Industrial Society and its Future.
Industrial Society and its Future. It's where, if you haven't read it, I recommend it, because
You guys have it on audiobook, so go get the audiobook.
go get the audiobook. We had it. We had
And
it on
Holly
YouTube.
mentions in there, she wrote a 4-piece Substack on the UN using First Nations to do a global land grab, starting with BC. That seems to be
Well,
what's
I was
happening.
going to say the main thing about what's going on in BC right now. So the difference is that for Americans, which I assume most of your audience is Indians in Canada were never conquered. We didn't have Indian wars like you guys had in the States. We just like made deals. We signed deals that some of them were signed with like X's and squiggly lines and shit. But, we signed deals that basically the deals are going to work sort of two ways, where I think a bunch of Indians are going to get paid out for some minerals that got taken and all these other rights over the years, because the treaties were sort of written that you had to share some of that stuff. But they were also written that, we give up the right to come back for any of this land, basically. It's signed on the dotted line. Whereas in BC, that just never happened. That never happened. In BC, they were still sort of arguing, and they just sort of started building these settlements. And then as they were still arguing, but the Indians never really had enough power. They were never empowered enough to really do anything about it. And, the next thing you know, it's completely taken over. Now, that being said, I don't think that any of what's going on in BC right now is organic. It just seems like you've just been hanging around for 20, 30 years of the internet, and like we're too far into the game of having educated Indians, and we're past like the the lawsuits for this and the lawsuits for that. And it's like, oh, all of a sudden, all these Indians in different areas of BC are up, and people get pissed. I can say Indian because I am a fucking Indian. I'm a card carrying treaty Indian. So I'll say what my treaty card says on it. When it stops saying registered Indian, maybe I'll stop saying Indian. But until that day, I'm an Indian by their words and mine. So it just seems weird that, all of a sudden when everything else is in total disarray, that the Indians are also in uproar. So, I mean,
I think Ken
not
Burns should have
mentioning
hired you as a
UN.
narrator.
I think the UN is all over it.
There was a clip we played last week commenting on Ken Burns's use of Indian narration in his new documentary.
Oh man,
And,
did you hear the guy that wrote the what was that book called now? I can't remember. It was like one of the best-selling Indian books of all time though, and it turns out dude's not even Indian.
A lot of that
Well,
going
Marlon Brando, didn't he have that whole instead of accepting his Academy Award, he had someone who was alleged purported to be a Native American back then, and then after she passed away, like her sisters and cousins all said no, she wasn't, she was like Italian or something maybe. But she played like a Pocahontas type character for the Academy Awards reading. It was a very famous thing back in the day.
I have a good, I have a positive outlook on it though, because it's going to bring all this stuff to light. I mean, the problem with the reservations that we have in Canada, well, they're not even called reservations, but I mean, they don't even own that land. The people, like it goes, all the money gets funneled through the chiefs. The people, there's major problems with the culture. I mean, Darren's got some stats on like, children taken from their families, and I mean it's a mess up here with addiction and alcoholism too, and they don't even own their own land. Whereas in America they have more autonomy with their land, I think. So there's some massive problems that it's all gonna have to come to light here in Canada, I think. So I'm just hoping that it gets we get through it without a revolution, because we're so fragile. I mean our infrastructure is so fragile.
Collapse seems inevitable. I mean, that would be my prediction, is that I'm sort of preparing for collapse of some level. I mean, I'm a bit of a catastrophist that I think we're sort of overdue for anyway. So I'm sort of always prepping on that level for the last few years at least. But lately, I'm just like, I don't see how this. I mean, you sort of touched on it earlier when you mentioned the guy who invented the microwave versus the guy who can barely use it, and I started noticing that, I think, in the airports first a few years ago, and some of them more complicated systems, complex systems involving multiple countries and all sorts of stuff, that they were starting to really stutter. And then I started noticing in my own industry in construction, where it's like, man, you're having like, I think for the one new building they made for the hospital, they were already up to like, my buddy Hank was telling me, he's like, dude, if I just counted the payroll for the people that were in the meetings doing the planning just to get to the point of starting the drawings for these buildings, and he's like, it was like $1.2 million. And he's like, that's not counting the catered lunches they had for every one of them, and the blah and the blah and the blah. But I mean, I'm at the point now where I'm noticing it at the retail stores. The idiocracy seems to have to, which I do think that Michael Judge stole from Ayn Rand, or maybe just made it funny. But the idiocracy seems to be everywhere. I don't know. I go back and forth on whether or not it's infected the elites and the globalists as well, and whether they're at the top, or just that's probably why, if that's part of the reason why it's as messy as it is, because they're as retarded as the rest of the public. And I mean, I don't.
Well, I think their inbreeding's probably to blame in their case.
Well, I mean, if you add inbreeding to this idiocracy, it ain't fucking good, because the general public, I mean, I don't know. I feel terrible sometimes, because at the end of the day, I started looking at most of the general public as the fucking useless eaters, using the same words that the elites used to use to describe us. But I looked at the clear line as being that COVID again, because before then I was sort of happy to sort of live and let live, man. They can live in their world. They can do their thing. They can watch their sitcoms. They can waste their fucking life. I'm going to be over here doing my thing. And the two of us can coexist for perpetuity, for as long as it takes. But then this sort of switch flip during COVID, where, because I like talk about that to Graham all the time, where I'm like, everyone says tyrannical government, tyrannical this, tyrannical that. Yeah, I agree with all that stuff. But during all of COVID, outside of when I was crossing the border, that was when I had to deal directly with the government face to face. Other than that, man, every single negative COVID interaction I had was with a member of the general public. One of the people that I want to just say, live and let live. It's like, oh, you're having people at your house. Oh, you're not wearing a mask. Oh, there was never a government official telling me I couldn't come into the bar or the restaurant or the this or the that because I wasn't vaccinated. It was never a government official asking to see my papers. And I'm not giving any of the governments a fucking pass for putting those mandates in place that got people to that point. But I do put a pretty big onus on the general public because, we got to a point in Canada where those people were like a couple more commercials and maybe one more wave away from actually putting dudes like Graham and I in fucking cages for not getting the shots. I mean, we were actually having that conversation in Canada. We're like, what are we gonna do when they fucking? What are we gonna do then? What's the move? What's the fucking? It was never really on the table to get it, but it was like, what are we gonna do? Because it was getting to that point where it was starting to get weird, and the general public just sort of let me down en masse. They didn't have to break the rules. They didn't have to, but they could have just shut the fuck up. And
I
but
mean, that's a legit situation, and that people had to face and might have to face again, right?
well, this is the thing.
And
I was
and the
like,
way I could say it without risking somebody else's medical license in that situation is I hand them $1,000 and I say some shots miss.
yeah. But I mean, this is with like the least amount of fucking pressure you could possibly imagine, right? We're like well into the COVID ain't gonna kill you phase. We're
Right.
well into that. Everybody knows this is bullshit, right? If you
Just
don't,
following orders.
yeah, we're into the just following orders phase. So how much more severe do those orders have to get before the general public is suddenly a direct threat to the safety of me and my family? It suddenly became something I had to consider because I'm like, man, this thing isn't killing anyone. You kill 3%, kill 1 in 20, and these motherfuckers will lead these people to my door and drag me out of the fucking house. And that's if they don't just stomp me to death in the street, like because I suddenly had this situational awareness with the general public that has made me a little more uneasy with it that I mean, I'm out in the middle of nowhere now because it's like these motherfuckers will turn on me in a moment's notice. And you can say that all these people have woken up, have they learned this, and a ton of people have said that. I've heard that directly from people. I'm telling you, 9 out of 10 of those motherfuckers that turned on you during COVID will turn on you during the next one. 9 out of 10. It's even the ones that apologize. 9 out of 10 are going to turn on you again. If they just tweak that they've already proven they're susceptible to the propaganda. So they just got to tweak it this way or tweak it that way, and they're going to fall for it again. So, suddenly I had to start worrying about the general public. But that's sort of a tangent from the general point I was trying to make, is just that I don't think that this generation that you're talking about, and even part of my generation and part of the younger generation, are capable of running and fixing the systems and the machines that our grandparents built. I'm talking
Thus,
about
it's
electrical
perfect.
grids and all
Yeah.
this stuff. I don't see how they can keep any of it on.
I think it's purposeful timing for them to not be prepared. At the same time, they've got AI here to answer the questions and run your world for you and make it all in the Logan's Run.
Could be. I think they're stealing the money to build bunkers to survive the pole flip, but I mean, either way, they're up to no good.
They can try. I mean,
They can
there's
try.
do you ever see the Y files about the CIA knows about the end of the world? And it's about the report back in the 60s to that effect. That was like the
Darren wrote a book
punchline of it.
about it.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
there
mean,
you go.
I would
Yeah.
say there's a ton of evidence that the CIA knows a bunch of stuff about the. I don't know if they know about the end of the world, but or when the end of the world, but I think they know about a cycle of catastrophe that other people are starting to touch on as well, and I think that's part of the reason that you can't get into the whole. I mean, you can't get into the whole hypogeum. There's parts. I think there's places we can't go for certain reasons. You know, there's a part of the Grand Canyon that shut off because I think that at some point, you know, the perfect example is when they stopped digging out Gobekli Tepe, right? They were digging and digging and digging out of Gobekli Tepe, and they pulled out Pillar 43, and they went for a little while longer until they figured out what Pillar 43 kind of said, which I would say says this is what the stars look like when the cataclysm happened, and this is what it looks like when it happens again, and sort of lead to that it happens every so often. And you know, it was shortly after that that they sort of stopped digging up all of it, planted some trees on top of it, and said that they're not going to excavate any more of it because we have to save it for future archaeologists to dig out. And I think that they're fucking scared of what they're going to dig up next. I think that the pillars are I think Gobekli Tepe specifically is one of the sites that I think that people are starting to read Pillar 43 with, in the way I read it, which is a map of catastrophe, a calendar of catastrophe, and there's 300 more pillars in there. And I think they're worried about what the fuck they have on them. I don't think they're interested because I think they know. And, you know, I do think there's a level of idiocracy with the elites, but I think that they know. I mean, there's a lot of evidence that, what's his name? Not Chan Thomas, the other one. The Pulse, the other guy that
How good? How good?
Put off? How put off?
No, no.
Okay.
No, the guy
how
that
good?
Hapgood, Charles
Hapgood.
Hapgood. Yeah, he's the guy who went to did those early polar expeditions in the 20s and 30s for the government, came back, started talking about catastrophic pole flips, and then kind of seems like he got a job with the CIA and changed his narrative over the few years. But then his buddy Chan Thomas wrote this whole book about the cataclysm and how the Bible and all this stuff sort of fits into this cycle of catastrophe, which the CIA classified 2 years after it came out, even though it only sold like a couple hundred copies. And it's still classified. Most of that book is still classified. They released 59 pages out of 225, I want to say. It seems like they left out all the details that maybe could sort of help really balance out the theory. Everything they sort of left everything they declassified, I should say, could sort of clearly be like dismissed as allegory or mythology or something like that. But that flood myth is pervasive, man. I mean, it's up. There's like almost 200 different cultures around the world on every continent except Antarctica that say that their oral traditions talk about inundation, where the only people that survived were on the mountains.
Well, I think Gobekli Tepe is a really interesting site. I know that they were excavating part of it, and it was like under roof, but outside, so that they could excavate. I wasn't aware that they were covering it up, literally. But it means Potbelly Hill for those of you playing at home. So Gobekli Tepe, it's the little Potbelly Hill. And there's other sites like that around the world that, yeah, you're right. They're cut off from human exploration presently. And there's also like government archives that are currently, the people who are just like guarding them don't have access. And, you know, it's like a filing cabinet from the past being held for people in the future somehow. And they got a couple of those types of things going on out there. So you have to try on all these ideas, see if they fit. And there's a limit to our certainty. So you always have to entertain the unknown. That's what I'm trying to say with that. You'd think I've been talking since noon or something. I wasn't talking the whole time. Most of it was listening with the students up till 6 o'clock. But before I send you guys off on your way, I want to say this is a fascinating discussion that I want to have continued. And next time I'll bring my Rick Strassman and Mitch Schultz artifacts, and we'll talk about some esoteric stuff, some archaeological stuff. These are all areas of my interest as well.
I got this piece of pottery that I got from underneath the Bent Pyramid.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's I mean,
Zahi Hawass didn't come and try to seize it and then say, read my book, Joe. Read my book. It's only my book.
Not yet. There's clear machining marks on it, though. I mean, there's no way this thing was made with a fucking chisel.
Well, can it be made with a rotary machine? Because I believe that they
Oh,
could have
that's what
had
I
some sort
think.
of
Yeah.
spinning wheel technology.
Yeah, well, I mean, the crazy thing about some of those vases is even the thickness is like, I mean, they're saying it's some of the ones that they're scanning right now, they're saying are within like a couple thousandths of an inch for thickness throughout the entire thing.
And it's hard material, so it's hard to just
In
machine
granite, in
that
granite.
away. Yeah.
Well, there's also the notion that they had too many robots in the future. They just decided to go into the past and become the masters of humanity. There's probably
Something
probably a sci-fi movie there if you need one.
something was going on. I mean, it seems like it was some people just like us that maybe just went in a different direction. And maybe we're I mean, when it seems like when they found out that a cataclysm was coming, instead of stealing all the money and fucking killing everybody, they built some pyramids and some. I mean, the other interesting thing about Gobekli Tepe is that shit was intentionally buried 12,000 years ago. So they buried it. Someone took the time to like mud brick in those columns and bury it with dirt and debris and garbage 12,000 years ago for some reason,
Well,
so that we could find it later, I guess, or to hide the past. I mean, who knows? But it sort of rewrites the whole table on human civilization.
anything that the traditional archaeologists don't like to talk about is something worth talking about. They can say, "Oh, that's debunked." I mean, there's a lot of interesting things out there, and I don't think all the answers have been deciphered, discovered, or passed on to us. So, retaining curiosity and the intent to understand is, I think, a good freedom mentality. It's like leaning into the game that's going on and trying to figure our way through. I think that if authority is so fragile that they need to lie, cheat, steal, occult, hide stuff away, hide useful information away from human beings who just got here in this experience, I think that's weak. I think that's intellectually bankrupt. And I think proof of that is anytime they have to use violence instead of logic and reason to prove their points. So, knowing that you guys recognize that, I want to thank you for playing your position on the field and covering the bases that you do, because I think it's an inspiration to people that are not just actively listening, but the people who actually want to be starting and doing and kind of outgrowing the status quo that they inherited, but they don't have to take to their grave. So, Graham, do you have any thoughts for the audience?
No, just that. Yeah, keep the curiosity open and yeah, follow our stuff. I mean, the archaeologists won't even approach. They won't even answer these questions. They won't even try to answer these questions. I mean, a lot of the stuff Darren and I physically saw in Egypt, and we're going to go to some other places. They have no answer. They have no even no narrative about it because it's impossible for them to talk about. So it's a fascinating time because it's all connected, right? This ancient mystery suppression is very connected with, I think, the cyclical cataclysm and what's happening in the world right now. It's all kind of connected. It's all part of like just hiding this truth from us. Not to get too conspiratorial, but it does seem to be a not organic. It's an engineered, narrative that we're up against here. So it's been great. Thanks for having us on. I really appreciate it.
Oh, well, I want to have you guys back on a regular basis so we can have these conversations because I think it's scintillating. And I think it's also good for the Grand Theft World audience to get exposed to other people who know how to like do do the thing right with excellence. And no one tells you guys what to do. You don't censor yourselves. You built a very organic operation and you have both had enough taste of real success that you don't want the artificial success that's being offered out there for 7,000 bucks a pop. You guys could probably be making some ads and supporting a foreign agenda and doing the dance. Come on, Sonnies, come on, go and do the thing. For others, we say no, thank you, and I'm waiting for a better offer. Like, where's the offer for freedom? Where's the offer to take some of that money? Like earlier tonight, my son likes to watch this show. There's like a Disney animal hospital down in the animal kingdom in Florida. They take amazing care of these animals. They're doing MRIs on snakes and they're giving catheter, whatever the thing is. It's like there are human beings in this country and all over the world that could probably appreciate some of that stuff. Or, there's this other guy that goes out and catches all this fish and he feeds them to his pets. And there's people starving between him and the boat that he's feeding all this stuff. So I just want to thank you guys for setting a positive example. And it's like it's it's like a fog of war out there for a lot of people. And there's a lot of people that are very popular and very, very well funded and advertised, and they're hollow as a paper bag. But you guys bring a lot of substance and meaning and heart and genuine authenticity to the game that we're all playing here in life. So thank you so much. I wanted to show off your sites once again. Over here on the X, we've got Graham, and then over here we've got Darren, and then over here we've got their audiobooks, adultbrain.ca. You can check out all these audiobooks and more. And then Grimerica outlawed.ca. Is there anything else?
Contactofthecabin.com is all our trips. Yeah, which we have a few. We're going to Easter Island coming up in April. We have Sicily.
You going to Easter Island for Easter?
I like it. Yeah, we did. I didn't see. Our marketing is so good. We didn't even pick up on that.
I mean, it's like literally the logo of your guys' show.
Yeah.
It'll be good there'll be some good publicity pictures for sure. So that'll be good. There's still like 6 or 7 spots left for that if people want to get in. Come to Easter Island and hang out for a week.
Go get your picture taken on a Moai head with Graham and Darren.
Absolutely. And then we're doing the big one that we're doing is the Sicily, Malta, Sardinia in April 2027. That is going to be super epic. And like 4-star hotels, fucking 5-star food.
And we should mention Randall Carlson's too. We got Beyond the Scablands, the Cordilleran Colombian link to Cataclysm. That's with Randall Carlson touring around like Washington State and showing the flood, like the evidence of the massive flood that happened. That, his theory is very, very close to the mainstream theory. It's just a little bit different, right? He thinks that a lot of this flood happened over 1 or 2 massive events during the Younger Dryas. So we go around and tour with him and see the actual landscapes. So,
yeah, learning how to read landscapes is a skill you want to acquire during your lifetime. And I say do it now before the big meteors hit or the pole shift happens or whatever cataclysm they're advertising this week. It's going to get us. So better learn about it and have fun along the way, because sometimes they're wrong, and that can be a good thing. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for taking some time and investing it with our audience tonight. And I look forward to our next discussion.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Have a good
Thanks,
one.
guys. Take it easy, man.
Yeah.
And gentlemen, take it easy, gentlemen.
I've dealt with a variety of fears over the years by facilitating a growth mindset and an anti-fragile mentality. I've learned from mistakes that you haven't even conceived of yet. Now, I can't do it for you, but I can share the resources, the methods, the tools, and inspiration for you to learn how to do it for yourself. And it really is worth learning how to do for yourself, because it's a lifelong beneficial skill. It's evergreen. It's never going to tarnish. You're always going to use this. If you're interested in learning more, I host a podcast every Sunday night. We analyze the week's news and help you have non-contradictory views. You actually understand, but you've got to come along for the ride and process the news with us so you have that understanding. I also teach adults twice a year in a 12-week course called Autonomy that is aimed at resolving all the problems I just pointed out with the school system and the irrational fears and the replacement of the rites of passage and the methods you need to have a skeleton key in life and a Swiss Army knife, so you can have the tools and the access to do whatever you need to do in this world to bring your goals, to bring your dreams and map them to a truthful reality. It is a simple process, but it is not for those who cling to their irrational fears. So I hope if we have lowered the barrier to entry today, if you see a future you that is more realistic and in detail and something you want to strive toward, I recommend you go to getautonomy.info. Check out the offer as far as what we do for people. I want you to know it applies to you. You can learn it. I can teach it. So I want to thank you all for your time and attention. Peace. Who's going to be first off the mute this morning?
I'm glad that I have this course now more than ever. Having a community of people to discuss how to be empowered and autonomous is really necessary and also therapeutic. this much scared about the virus and a lot scared of what's coming down the pipe as a result.
All right. So first off, we're going to get you away from that fear and that stress that I'm sensing. And I want to get you into the practicality of exercising the conversations you're going to need to have.
Have you found that your skills aren't matching up with the challenges ahead? Here are 19 essential skills for success that school never taught you. Get your free copy by following the link below or visit getautonomy.info/19skills.